Anderson.
Yes.
Spelled with 2 S's and an E here.
Which pretty much makes you feel at home, doesn't it, Steve?
Yeah, a bit of a Nordic flair.
Well, we have seen some Nordic weather in the last few minutes as we're getting ready for the World Archery Championships round with the Recurve. This is a pretty big, important step, but now they've got to buckle down, get ready to go. So going through their minds right now will be coping with the weather, which take a look and tell us what we've got going on.
Well, it's pouring down rain, but I must say that it has actually let up considerably from what we had 5 minutes ago. It's changing quickly. George has a radar pulled up here, and it's looking like it's going to be nasty for about the next half hour, so should make the shooting really interesting.
Yeah, interesting in that way of the Chinese curse, may live in interesting times maybe, but just looking at the radar right now, and we are about to get another shot of rain shortly. And meanwhile, they're getting practice in on the field of play, as you can see. And it's going to be, as I said, our key match will be Korea versus Spain, but we've got a full roster of these quarterfinal matches coming up, so let's also mention the other teams that will be shooting. Now for the women, we've got Korea versus Georgia. We've got Russia versus Mexico. There will be People's Republic of China and Japan competing, India and Colombia, Australia and the United States of America, men back on the men's matches. Netherlands will face Chinese Taipei, and China is going to face Italy. Let's talk about the particulars of the shooters, starting with the team of Spain.
So yeah, we're looking at Miguel Alvarino, Antonio Fernandez, and Juan Rodriguez from Spain. For these guys stepping up against Korea, who will feature Kim Woo-jin, Kubo Chan, and the Olympic champion Oh Jin-hyuk. For Spain, it's really they got nothing to lose here. No one faces Korea feeling like they're the favorite, and although I will say Poland gave them a very good run in the first round.
A scare, no less than a scare.
It was a last-second buzzer-beater victory for Korea.
Yeah, by none other than Oh Jin-hyuk, who got off to an awfully rough start this week here.
Yeah, we saw him struggle in the first round of qualification and then come roaring back in the second, and then he was clutch in the win over Poland to guarantee them a full roster in Rio.
He'd moved 11 places. At one point he was 35th. He moved 11 places in 2 ends and went 30 places total change in 4 ends. Yeah. So, obviously he buckled down and shot a bunch of 59s and whatever, but the reality is I think he was disappointed, and now he's kind of the hero of the team because he's come back and saved their bacon on that very, very scary prospect of not having made their Olympic slot right out of the box.
Yeah, I mean, he did what they needed to do. They got through. Cheers to Poland for making a great run at him, but they just didn't quite have enough in the tank to last through the 3-arrow shoot-off.
And, these guys, each of these guys has at least one world record. Each of these guys, we're looking at a couple of world champions here. We're looking at a situation where we've got the Olympic champion here. We are looking at the creme de la creme of recurve men, and they're up against a young and tough, I'd say they're tough because they've made it this far, team from Spain, which, by the way, is coached by a Korean coach. So, that's an integral part of the program, has been for about 10 years now.
Yeah, you see that in a lot of the countries. They have utilized that deep Korean pool to bring some of that knowledge and wisdom over to their own programs.
Yeah. More than 500 municipalities in Korea with a full-time coach. More than that. Probably double that number.
Yeah,
plus every high school in the country. It's just amazing how many talented coaches in our sport Korea has been able to turn out. And Steve, while we're not going to be looking at the compounds for a while, it's pretty remarkable the progress that Korea's made in compound archery, isn't it?
Yeah, I was actually just thinking about this earlier. Korea has, on the men's compound side, 2 gold medalists from the last 2 years at World Cups.
Yeah.
And they're probably the only team on the field, off the top of my head, that I can think of that has 2 individual gold medalists of their 3 participants.
Well, they really wanted to make a splash at the Asian Games, and those Asian Games were held in Incheon, Korea. And they made a commitment to have Korean archers on the podium with compound bows at that event, and it paid off in a big way. They actually worked with the manufacturers directly, specifically Hoyt, and figured out how to get the bows tuned, all that sort of thing. You were actually at Hoyt at the time that they were reaching their pinnacle.
Yeah, we were helping them with bow setup and things like that. I know they were they were looking to really get serious about it. I mean, no pun intended.
Yeah.
But
Information sponge there.
yeah, they want to. They only know this one way, and that's to do it at the highest level.
Right.
And it didn't take them long to get there. They're competitive across all facets of archery, and cheers to them for embracing the compound category.
Yeah, I'm going to say they treated it entirely like they treat their.
Yeah, I mean, as George and I have talked before, many of their compound shooters would be top-level recurve shooters in any other country in the world.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I mean, there's just no getting around that. Korea, not just with coaching depth, but with a tremendous talent depth among the shooters as well. And so actually, if you think about it, compound has become a whole new opportunity for a great number of those Korean shooters. I'm just going to take a peek here. And you can see, if you look at the target cameras right here, that we've got a tighter group on Korea's target from this first practice end. Got a couple flyers from Spain. Now, you know, when the metal hits the meat, as they say, when the buzzer goes off for real, for score, that may change. But right now, Korea looks like they're zeroing in on the target, and Spain is looking a little loose out there. So
yeah.
We'll see what happens here.
And for Spain, I guess there's, like I mentioned, they have really nothing to lose, so they can shoot a little more relaxed. Korea is expected to win the World Championship. That's something they come in, it's all or nothing. It's the second place, third place. Podium finishes aren't good enough. But for Spain, they can relax and shoot. So maybe on the first end, they get one out of the way. And with set system, broadcast might be cut short.
Well, either way, it'll live on the internet, one way or the other.
Yes.
So be careful what you say this time, all right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so I'm here with Steve the
Big Cat
Anderson, also known as Okineko in Japan, and El Gato Grande in Mexico. I have no idea. You know, he sounds like a villain from a movie, El Gato Grande.
Yeah, as long as no one calls me the Penguin. You know.
Well, there you go. And I'm George Tekmanchov. I am my day job is manager of Target Archery Products at Easton Technical Products, and Steve is responsible for
all of our shooting staff worldwide.
Yeah.
So I've come to know a lot of these archers.
Yeah,
personally.
it's kind of cool because we're able to really get to know some of these folks, and some of them for very many years now, and hopefully we can bring you a little bit of insight as we get ready to get underway. Let's just take a quick look here at some of the other matches taking place. They're not on camera, they're not on view, but remember that you can follow scores live on ianseo.net and also on archery.org on the internet.
So the one I'm looking at close, George, is People's Republic of China against Japan on the women's side.
Yeah.
Could be a burner.
You know, I'm going to tell you that is going to be a tough one to call, because you've got a situation where Japan is relatively fresh from beating Korea at the World Cup event that took place in Antalya, Turkey about a month and a half ago. Shocker for Korea, of course, but actually I kind of called that in advance. I've been shooting and working with the Japanese team since January of this year, plus previous years, and I had a pretty good suspicion they were capable of doing this. Meanwhile, some cracks forming in the Korean women's team foundation, but I think they've got some at least spackle slapped on those cracks, because they started out pretty well here.
Yeah, the Korean women, I think you're going to see rounding into top form yet again. They breezed through their first match, regardless of the fact that they're competing for Olympic spots in that first round. And for them, with a talent pool so deep, with what we've heard is 200 plus shooters who are capable of shooting as Olympians, to have to win that first match to guarantee 3 spots, there's a lot of pressure on them, and they made it look easy.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Okay, this looks like the last practice end before we get started. In Korea, just out of the box on this first practice end with a 10 and a 9. Spain with a 10 so far. This is just a practice end, like I said, but it could be a good indicator of where things are headed, because Korea just shot an 8.
Yeah, you can gauge stuff off this. What I'm noticing is the wind has switched from yesterday. It looks like it's quartering from the archer's rear, left to right. Yesterday it was going more of a right to left wind or quartering from the rear. So, some archers favor one wind over the other. I know I train in a left to right wind, and I'm certainly a lot better in a left to right wind.
So, one of the things I've noticed, and I probably should disclose right now, I'm actually coaching the Swiss team at this event. So I've been working with the shooters directly on the line and looking at the conditions. The unique thing about this field, the very first thing I noticed stepping out on this field, is there are very few reliable indicators of what the wind is really doing, and every single one of those is currently soaking wet.
Yeah, so that will, a wet flag is not going to be as reactive as a dry polyester flag, so it may not show the wind on the flag as much as it would in normal conditions, so they've got to kind of keep that in mind.
One of the things about our marquee match, which is set up for the cameras here on YouTube, is that it's the only trees in sight is right by the archers here. If you look at see the shot on camera one there, it's showing the tree, and it's the only tree.
It is. They aren't sheltered by any means.
And you don't have the indicator. Trees can be a good indicator of what's about to hit you.
Yeah, the next trees I see are about 400 meters to the right of the field.
Not terribly useful for either a fore or aft wind.
No. So now I'm watching the wind, and it's beginning to switch. It's starting to go away from the archers again. So
practice has been wrapped up, so next time it's going to be for real. The blood on the knuckles, and we're about to get underway with what is hopefully going to be pinnacle of performance, because the rain is down to a trickle now, and it looks like, just checking the radar, it looks like we're maybe going to be okay for the next foreseeable few hours, because that big blob of green has moved off from our location.
Yeah, here in Denmark, wait 10 minutes and you'll get something different, I guess.
That has been the case all week, hasn't it?
Yeah, it reminds me of home.
Well, yeah, if home were in a place that were a really interesting experiment in weather control, because we've got the Baltic Sea right next to us here. We've got Sweden's 15 minutes up the road, just for perspective. A good friend of mine and a good friend of archery, Jorn Björndal, the great archer from Sweden, the legend whose daughter Christine is shooting at this event, told me, jokingly I think, yes, we have two kinds of winter here. We have white winter, and now we have green winter. And we kind of laughed, but it wasn't funny, because yesterday it was 50 degrees Fahrenheit, and I think that if it had been raining, it would have really been miserable, but it was tolerable because it was dry.
Yes, and you notice some of the results looking down. I noticed that the Canadians on the men's compound side have shot their way into the gold medal final, so maybe they're feeling right at home.
Well, those Canadians some of those guys are used to shooting in a place called the Archers of Caledon, which is up on the shore of Lake Ontario. It's the only place I've ever shot in snow in June. I shot there years ago, and you'd be at full draw, and snowflakes would be coming down in June. So I have a feeling that weather like this just makes them laugh.
I don't think they're too concerned with 55-degree temps. And unless it's far south of 0 Celsius, they're probably doing okay.
Yeah, they're going to be fine, the Canadians. They're used to this kind of thing.
They will be competing against Iran, which probably does not see snow too often, I'm guessing.
Well, maybe there are ski resorts in Iran. I've heard that there are ski resorts in the mountain region there. But yeah, you're generally right. I've seen snow in Dubai once. We had a World Cup final in Dubai. There's an indoor shopping mall with a ski slope. It's amazing.
A giant snow cone maker.
Yeah. Actually, more people were walking around in the snow wearing boots, moon boots that they rented, than were actually skiing.
I guess they're experiencing it one way or another.
Yeah. It's not quite that cold, though. Okay, last-minute checks are going to be made. The coaches are going to be telling the shooters to do just what you may have heard in the background if you were listening. That was the snap of a bowstring. That's about all a recurve shooter can do to get ready to shoot in the rain. You snap that string before you put the arrow on, get as much water off that string as you can. These guys will have made an effort to keep their tabs dry.
Yeah, they're probably just taking some insurance clicks on the site. At this point, if I'm going to miss high or low, I'd rather it be high.
Yeah, Korea's practice end, most of them, generally the center of the target was a little high compared to the group.
Yes.
So they're going to dial in a couple of clicks, psychological clicks maybe, and here we go.
Started
with
well.
The,
I guess you could take a half click.
Goodness gracious, that's an X from Korea, and we've got a solid 10 there from Spain.
Yeah.
And our good friend Juan Carlos Holgado of Spain, the Olympic champion team member. He's sitting about 2 meters away, and he's looking cool and calm. But I bet I know who he's pulling for. All right. Juan Carlos, you may have tuned in earlier. He was with Andreas, our good friend Andreas Lorenz. Goodness, Korea just shot treble X, XXX. And Spain with
3-10 to match.
And I got to tell you what, I'm looking at what could be a liner for Spain. It could be out just by a millimeter.
A 4th X for Korea right
out
there.
Out comes the 80-something millimeter Zeiss, and I'm looking at, yep, that's in, but they just shot an 8. Spain just shot an 8. They did not need to shoot an 8 with Korea shooting 4 X's. Unbelievable from Korea. 4 X's in the rain? Are they making a statement here? Well, there's a 9. And Spain with another, well, that's a liner. It's a 9. So we've got 4 X's and a 9 for Korea. We've got 3 10s, a 9 and an 8. And Korea with a 9. That's 6 arrows out of Korea right now. So that first set goes to Korea without a doubt because it mathematically cannot be beat.
That's
wow.
An impressive group right there.
What do you guys call that in compound? Crushing it? Something like that?
Good enough, yeah. And you'll take that anytime.
No doubt.
Yeah, a 4X 58, and with individually as a compound shooter might be a little disappointing, but to open up with 4 X's as a team in a recurve match,
holy smokes,
you can pretty much take your foot off the gas and coast.
Yeah. Well, so it's a 2-0 lead for Korea. It was 58 in raw points, 56 for Spain for that first scoring set.
I think that's probably going to be about where we'll see both teams end up each set. I could see Korea sticking around the 56 on the low side, around 57, 58 average. I can imagine Spain sticking around 56 as well.
One of the cool things about this Tubecast, Steve, is we've got every single kind of viewer, and I think we probably ought to spend a little bit of time explaining the round because unless you really know the ins and outs of this thing, it might be kind of hard to figure out what's going on. So let's start out with the target. The target is 122-centimeter target, and it's divided into scoring zones.
So the 122 centimeters is the overall diameter of all the scoring zones. The main scoring ring, the 10 ring, is 12.2 centimeters in diameter.
About the size of a CD.
Yeah, the X ring is half that, so 6.1 centimeters.
And the X ring, by the way, is designed to be kind of hard to see on camera.
Yeah.
It's not really meant to do anything other than tell you, okay, it's a 10, but it's even better because it's an X.
Yeah, it's a style point.
But we actually don't keep score with the X ring anymore in recurve.
No. So from there on, each value increases 1 point each ring.
So each color is divided with a fine black line into 2 scoring zones. The yellow, or what we call the gold, is divided with a 10 ring in the center, and then the outside perimeter of that is a 9.
Yes, and an archer to achieve the highest point value must only touch the line. So if you're mainly in the 9 ring but touching that 10 line, counts as a 10.
Yeah, and the reason is because the line is actually drawn inside the high scoring zone.
Yes.
And or printed, I should say. It's been a while since they've drawn those things. But they actually used to do that. They had a big, you ever see like a Wheel of Fortune?
Yeah.
Okay, you know the Wheel of Fortune?
Right.
Imagine taking a paintbrush and putting a white piece of paper up on the Wheel of Fortune. You got a paintbrush and it's got gold paint on it. You spin the wheel, you take the paintbrush and you stick it in the middle. That creates a perfectly round center. And then you take another paintbrush and just keep applying color as the thing spins. That's literally how these things were made back in the day, but they were made out of canvas.
Well, you make do with what you got. I think everyone enjoys the precision of printed faces that we deal with now.
It's an historic target face. It's a image that goes back to the 1600s, and in fact, in the UK, the York round is still shot today, but with a 9.76 or 9.75, whatever, 9.753 scoring. And the whole goal is a 9, and they shoot X number of arrows at like 100 yards. And it's quite a few arrows, and then somewhat fewer arrows as they move closer. But it's basically 4 distances. That actually created the historic basis of the feed around. I'm going to grab Chris Marsh sometime this afternoon. We'll talk about what the York round really is, but that's the American perspective on it. Actually, it used to be shot in the United States. The original NAA of the United States, they shot the York round back in the day.
Had not heard of it.
There you go. I guess we're lucky that the feed around wasn't called the New York round.
Yes, a little piece of archery history there.
All right. Where do we stand now? Okay, we've got Korea with a 2 set point advantage. Now that means Spain is going to shoot first.
Yes, and we should probably explain the set system to him, George. So in recurve archery, in the team round, they shoot to 5 set points. If you win a set, if you win the 6-arrow end, you're awarded 2 points. A tie splits. So as teams shoot towards 5 points, if they end up tied at 4-4, they will continue on in a 3-arrow shoot-off. Each archer will shoot 1 arrow to determine the winner. Highest score of those 3 arrows will take the win. Should they end up tied, the closest arrow to center will determine the winning team.
Very good. You did that with no notes. I'm impressed.
I suppose I just regurgitated this stuff enough.
Spain getting ready to get back up there. We're seeing, still actually a reasonably respectable rainfall out there.
Yeah, I think we're seeing some darker skies build too. So
yeah, let me check that radar.
We may, 10 minutes and it's going to change. So
that has been the case all the way through this tournament, no doubt.
And kudos to the field squad. They have umbrellas over the cameras now.
And the field squad's been great on the rest of the field, too. They've really kept this tournament moving.
Yeah, we've been smooth from start to finish. As soon as they start the first scoring arrow, there haven't been any major delays.
Honestly, gotta love the Copenhagen Volunteers. They have just done a fantastic job.
Everywhere, yeah. Very happy people, super nice, informative when they need to be. And they came out in droves. There's a lot of them.
And who can ever dispute that breakfast in a Danish hotel is about as good as it gets?
It's been solid.
Yeah,
it's been solid.
No doubt. All right, as you can see, viewers can't see it, but we've got some more green blobs on the radar screen, and it's actually a continuation of the same big green blob. But I'm thinking in the next half hour or so we should be starting to clear out a bit.
Should be the tail end of it. So.
We have the ability to look at a live radar image here, and it's not looking good for the next few minutes, but after that it should get a lot better.
Yeah, I think at this point the archers are all soaking wet. They're just going to deal with whatever happens anyways.
Well, you know what? The Koreans are staying dry on their core. They're all wearing a waterproof vest out there, which they can shoot in. And, of course, they've practiced in the rain. So if you needed any proof of that, just look at the Korean target again. They've got 2 10s, 2 9s. Spain not rolling over, but not quite keeping up with Korea. They've got a 10, a 9, and an 8. Korea still ahead in this second set. 10, 9, 9, 9 versus 10, 9, 9, 8 for Spain. 2-point advantage unofficially right now for Korea in this second set. In the set play, they're leading 2-0. Korea's got a 10, 10, 9, 9, 9. I see. The scoreboard is saying Korea has all 9s except 1 10, but they actually have 2 10s down there.
Yeah, the one there at about 5:30 looks pretty suspect, but
no, that's in.
Yeah, you're looking through the spotting scope. So
yeah, it's definitely in. So I mean, it's tough because you're looking at it at an angle, and the judge is of course the one who makes the call, but it's pretty clear from here.
Right. So we're looking at the target, and Korea their 9s are just out of the 10.
That's a 2-point set win on that one for Korea, so they're going to lead 4-0. It's immaterial whether it's 2 points or 1 because Korea is clearly ahead. And we've got Spain with a valiant effort, a powerful effort from Spain, but not enough to hold off Korea. Against almost any other team out here, I would argue Spain would be holding their own right now.
Yeah, they'd probably be somewhere around a 2-2 tie or 3-1 lead, or maybe at worst a 1-3.
Well, let's see, pick another team. I mean, I would venture against the Americans. They'd be holding their own.
Yeah, it'd be a close match. With the 56 to open up, that's not terrible.
So now actually would be a good time for us to take a quick look at the rest of the results as we go along. That's assuming that we're getting updates right now because we've had some electrical glitches. And at the moment, our connection does not appear to be functioning. So we'll talk about that bit in a little while. Let's do this the old-fashioned way. Throw some eyeballs on the flip charts. We've got Korea versus Georgia on targets 4 and 5. And it was Korea in the lead with a 2-0 advantage going into this second set.
And that is the Koreans' women team.
Yeah, sorry, Korean women's team. Thank you for clarifying that. You know, our TV match is kind of out of sequence for the matches. Normally the men would be down at the far end and women would be closer to this end. So the Korean women are where you'd normally expect them to be. Then you got Russian Federation versus Mexico. We've got China versus Japan. Now, Russia versus Mexico are on targets 7 and 8. And as soon as the archers physically move out of the way, we'll know what the status is. Let's go back to the match between the women of Korea and the women of Georgia. Korea with a 4-0 lead right now, same as the men. Korea is looking to cruise to a win here. Now it takes 5 set points to win one of these matches. First one that wins 5 set points wins, unlike the individual matches where you need 6.
Yeah, so it's they tend to go quicker.
Yes, they do actually overall tend to go quicker.
Yeah.
And the crowd, you know, the spectators at the finals, they absolutely like it better. I've noticed that.
Yeah, it creates a little more drama right off the get-go.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty exciting match.
Most of the archers like it a lot too. Quite literally, because you can shoot one bad arrow and possibly come back to win or at least tie things up.
Yeah, it's not as critical to them.
Remember, it's 5 points for a match victory. Korea already have 4, so a draw set will be enough for them to take this match in advance.
You know, it looks like China and Japan are tied.
Yeah, it looks like they're sitting at 2-2. We don't have target assignments right in front of us, but it looks like Mexico might have a 4-0 lead.
Well, this could settle things, Steve. We've got Korea on a roll. Spain has yet to score in set play, unfortunately, in spite of some great shooting.
Yeah, and we're seeing here Kim Woo-jin with a hat on. That's rare.
Well, you know, he's trying to keep that night. Wow, that's a solid 10 from Korea, or from Spain, pardon me, just now. And Korea shot a 9, so Spain may be rising to the occasion. Hope so.
Yeah,
just for the sake
interesting to keep it going.
For the sake of our match here, you know. Korea just responded with an X. And we've got a 10 from Spain, so they've got a 1-point advantage with 4 shots to go. Hangul, Korea, another 10. España with an 8.
Yeah, that might be enough to turn the tide in this set.
Yeah, this may have just broken the... All right, so Korea with a pair of 10s and a pair of 9s. We've got a pair of 10s from Spain and now a pair of 8s, maybe a 9-liner if the judge is really feeling fuzzy. But, gosh, this doesn't look good for Spain right now. Because tie is not good enough. They've got to win this set.
Yeah, they have to take the set win.
Oh, holy smokes, a 7 from Korea.
Yeah, that is
you do not see that every day.
It's a rare sight.
Did you happen to see which shooter that was? My eye was on the target.
I believe that came from Oh Jin-hyuk, the Olympic champion.
Okay, final arrow's coming up.
One once in a while.
Oh, you know it. Okay, each team with 1 shot to go. Oh, Spain did not need that 8.
No, and
Okay,
shot
so
a 9
1,
there.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6 down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ah, it's a tie. It's
Not
a
enough
tie,
for
so
Spain.
Korea has taken this match.
Yeah, and that's a
That is as close as it. Spain had their chance. If they'd shot a 10 on that last arrow, they would have kept things alive. They would have mathematically still been in the hunt. But now it's a 6-0 straight set win for the team of Korea, which I'm sure is. Well, listen, Spain can hold their heads high. They really, they rose to the occasion as best you can expect.
Yeah, and,
especially with this weather.
As we mentioned, you put them on the other targets and they might be competitive. They might be right there.
Yeah, well, that's just the luck of the draw to some degree. But, ultimately the best teams are the teams that tend to win. I mean, it's mathematically proven by my good friend from Australia, Dr. Jim Park, who's spent a lot of time and energy on a correlation between score and winning rate, and there's no question about it. This is not a lottery.
Yeah, it's not very often that the lower score wins in the set system. We do see it periodically. Usually it's because of one bad arrow, but generally the set system still gives us the best teams.
It's certainly the best show. All right, we've got some other matches taking place right now, so as soon as we see the flip charts, we'll see whether there are any shoot-offs required to finish things up here in this one quarterfinal round.
Yeah, and we should be one more end away from shoot-offs.
Well, we could have some ties here.
Yeah, we might be looking at some 4-2s or 3-3s.
But you're quite right. I'm one set ahead of myself.
And it looks like the Korean women actually gave up a set there.
Yes, they did. It's 4-2 right now in favor of Korea versus Georgia. For Russia versus Mexico, it was 4-0. It looks like victory for Russia. It looks like they've defeated Mexico. What can you tell us about the Mexican team that we don't know? Ida Roman, the Olympic champion, is a member of that team, Steve. And Alejandra Valencia, finalist in London. Just really good shooters, along with the relatively new Carla Hinojosa.
Yeah, and watching them all over the last few tournaments, they've actually had very similar ranking round scores. Team seems to be fairly in tune with one another. You know, Carla was the newcomer, but the three of them at Pan Am Games were somewhere, I think all four of them, or the three of them were all in the top 4. So,
and you get the impression they're a well-meshed team. They shoot well together.
Yeah, they seem to have good chemistry.
But Russia looks like they ran over them, and it's a 6-0 win for Russian Federation. Now, target 11, we're looking at People's Republic of China versus Japan. And at the moment, fixing our target 7.
Not sure who was on target 10 and who was on target 11.
Yeah, I'm trying to sort that out right now. We're having a little problem with the
one of them took a pretty
results
dominating
system, so we're going to do this
win.
with paper.
Let's see if we can't spot some arrows on the Korean women, who are the next target closest to
So it looks
us.
like Japan defeated China 6-0.
So Japan moves on.
Yes, sir. And then we've got it's India with a 4-2 lead over Colombia right now. So some solid performances there. Now moving down to the men's team matches that are still going on at this time. Korea versus Spain. We've already mentioned a featured match. Korea dominant in that one. Looks like USA has just closed out a 6-0 win over Australia.
Very nice. So U.S. boys are moving on to the semifinals.
4-2 Chinese Taipei versus Netherlands in favor of Chinese Taipei. Chinese Taipei leading by 2 set points. So Netherlands has a chance to take it to a shoot-off if they can take this next set.
Yeah, Netherlands has a strong team, a really young team. But they've had their ups and downs, but they've got a lot of talent out there.
And the gentlemen's team from the People's Republic of China now leads 4-2 versus Italy. Italy coming on strong in this tournament in the individual slots, but perhaps not going to be able to overcome China. We'll see what happens here. In fact, we can actually, even though we can't see it on the camera, we're going to spot some of that action for you.
So the rain has all but let up. The wind is pretty minimal right now as well.
Yeah, but you wouldn't know it looking at those two targets, Steve. You can't see it from here with the naked eye because it's well over 200 meters away, but China and Italy are shotgunning it. They are all over the target. However, it looks like China, I hesitate to call this because it's just not what I expected to see. Let's just wait for the results here because it's like somebody took a shotgun and shot arrows down there. It's remarkable.
Yeah, and I can barely make out the Korean women's team target. It is the closest one to us, still about 100 meters away, but there's
inconveniently there's a flag in the way.
Yeah,
but
there's a flag waving in front of it, but there's a pretty solid wad right in the middle.
Yeah, I saw that. Every time the flag goes by, you can see there's. Yeah, that is looking good. Don't hit your mic. And don't tell people not to hit your mic with an open mic. I think that's our lesson for today. Yeah, you know what, Steve? I'm not going to call that one because Korea's got two high arrows there. Okay, we'll find out momentarily here, Steve. I think you got a little better angle on this, and we're going to look to see whether we still have a match going on here. I'm not seeing any handshaking going on. Georgia, target 5, women of Korea on target 4.
Yeah,
okay, Korea took it.
Yep.
Korea took it. Done.
They just flipped it to 6, so they take a 6-2 victory over Georgia.
Yep, that's it, and the judge just made it official. Let's see the others. Let's see if there are any other.
4 set points each. Nothing to separate those two teams. And we have results elsewhere on the field.
Looks like victory for India.
Against Georgia, 6-2.
And they've taken out Colombia.
We got a 4-4 draw between the People's Republic of China and Italy.
The gentlemen of China and Italy have a 4-4 draw, which means a shoot-off. And that shoot-off is going to take place on the two far targets down there.
Yeah, 25 and 26, which, as we mentioned, are a good 150, 200 meters away from us.
Oh, no problem. I've got the scope here. We'll take care of that. My buddy Joel took care of that problem.
You got it.
All right, here we go. 25 and 26, and it looks like as soon as everybody's off the field, they're going to start that shoot-off. And we'll just call that for you as soon as that takes place. Rahul Banerjee and Mangal Singh Champia, Jayanta Talakdar, have a ton of experience. And they're up against another team with quite a bit of experience, Mauro Nespoli and David Pasqualucci and Michele Frangilli. Each team member will shoot a single arrow to break the tie.
And again, should these teams remain tied after these 3 arrows, the team who has the single closest arrow to center will win.
Yeah, and China has motivation here. So does Italy. China's team is Gu Zhujiang, Xing Yu and Dai Xiaoxiang. And they both have a 9. Both teams with a 9. There's a 10-9 liner from China. It's a 9. Italy with a 9. We still have a tie. China with a 9. Italy needs a 10 to win. It is a 9, so now it comes down to which team has the arrow closest to center. Looks like it's going to be too close to call.
The Italians are celebrating down there, so they must feel pretty good about it.
They must feel good about it, but I'll tell you what, China's got an arrow just as close to the center as they do, so I'm not sure what's going to happen here. Let's see what the judge does.
Yep.
That's why we have them. Because that is too close from here, given the distance and angle. We are looking at if the score is the same, it's the team with the arrow closest to center that takes it. So this is simply going to be a matter of measurement if the scores are indeed the same. And when we're looking at a judge, a World Archery line judge is going to raise an arm toward the winning target. So that's what you look for when you're in the audience at one of these things. You look for the judge to determine which one's the winner. And I believe I see the judge reaching into their bag for their calipers.
And for those of you who don't know, that means it is awfully darn close.
Yeah, that's it. They're pulling out the calipers, and they're going to make the measurement. So the World Archery judge down there, who is an international judge from a country other than Italy or China, by the way, is using the calipers to make the call. And I'll tell you what, the Italians are crowding the target. That's a little, the judge doesn't normally allow them to get within a meter of the target. The Italians are practically pushing the judge into the target. And they are really, the judge is really being tolerant here. Okay, here comes the call. We're going to see this call in a moment. If you see 2 arms out, we shoot over again.
Yeah, neither team is looking confident at this point.
It looks like they're talking to the judge. I don't think they like what she's got to say. They're making her measure it again, I think. Sure enough, she's making the call. Here we go. This is, it's really interesting because it's like a rugby scrum around that judge, and most World Archery judges will absolutely not put up with that, but these judges here seem to be very understanding.
They'll ask you to step back, give them some space.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm not going to name a name, but one of the Italian archers just about, she's measuring it again. Now, I'll tell you this. The guidelines for judges used to be that if you've got to measure twice, it's a tie.
It's a reshoot.
That used to be sort of the back of the envelope, this is what you do kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen here. Let's find out in a moment. She's measuring the other target again. She's measuring the Italian target. This is 2 measurements that she's taken on each target.
Well, this is a 3rd on the Italian target.
You know, like I said, this was so close.
Yeah, here she comes for a 3rd
And she's doing it again on this is really unusual. There's no question that this is so close. Oh, and the Italians are celebrating.
But the judge
Here comes the call. Hang on while the judge makes the call. And she does give it to Italy.
She gave it to the Italians.
And boy, did she measure. Holy smokes. She measured like 3 or 4 times.
Under a lot of pressure.
No doubt. But I'll tell you this. I have no doubt that her call was correct. These judges are highly trained. And you know what? When in doubt, they'll call it out or they'll call it in, depending on, what the circumstances are.
Yeah, without absolute certainty, it's you reshoot the arrows. So obviously the calipers.
Yeah, there was a round number that gave the judge the difference.
Yep.
And so that was as close as it gets without calling a reshoot.
Yep. I mean, at this point, when the calipers come out, it's really no longer a judgment call. It is a measured call. Now, provided they are using the calipers correct.
Yeah, well, there's no doubt about that. You don't get to be an international judge without hundreds and hundreds of hours of training.
Yeah, and there was an issue a few years back where a judge incorrectly used calipers, and World Archery, in great transparency, actually released some meeting minutes from a judge's meeting, and where they highlighted and went over the use of calipers, and since then, no issues.
The nice thing about World Archery is that they're not above admitting mistakes and taking opportunities to try to improve, and it's continuous improvement. I think that's what gives our sport its integrity, is that everybody's trying to do the right thing, and the transparency and the integrity of our sport is above reproach. And I think we've heard that from President Bach when the Congress opened here in the World Archery Congress opened here. He did a video message. The president of the IOC talked about how archery, World Archery in particular, one of those federations that has above the fold transparency and forward motion. He talked about how it's a leader in upholding the Olympic movement, and I think that's the reason why our sport is one of the core Olympic sports now.
Yeah, I believe it has to be. If you look at some of the other stuff that's happening in international sport, like what we've seen
FIFA,
with
for example.
FIFA, yeah, the controversy there, and it's a black eye on the sport entirely, and at some point it affects it at the highest levels.
Yeah, kind of makes you proud to be at one of these events and know that judge down there is going to be as fair and impartial as you can possibly get.
Yeah, and if they're not, it's too, how do I say this? It is they don't have the ability to be impartial. It's a tight-knit community.
No, you mean to be partial. They don't have the ability to not be fair.
Yes.
Because we all know each other.
We all know each other, and the archers generally have a lot of integrity themselves.
Absolutely. Okay, so here's the procedure for what's going to happen next. Field is going to get reset, and soon we'll see who our next marquee match is going to be. It is Japan and India. They picked a great one because these two teams have come up against each other before. Japan generally with the upper hand, but a lot of experience on both of these sides, and I've worked pretty closely with the Japanese team over the years, and I can tell you that Japan is in as good a form as I have seen them in the past decade.
Yeah, like you mentioned, team gold at Shanghai World Cup, shot strong in Antalya.
Well, they won in Antalya.
Maybe I'm mixing up the two.
That's okay.
Yeah.
The win was in Antalya, and we are looking at an opportunity here to see some very high-level shooting from the women. Now, Kaori Kawanaka has a bronze medal from the London Olympic Games, and her teammate, Saori Nagamine, is a relative newcomer to the national team. Hayashi Yuki from Kyoto, Ms. Hayashi, is a 2008 Olympian but did not shoot for Japan in 2012 at the Olympic Games. She has, however, consistently been on the podium at what is known as the Shakaijin Nationals. That's the nationals for people who have a job, as opposed to people who are in high school or who are in university.
Interesting.
She was also a top university archer, so she was on top of the podium several times for the nationals there. She's got a lot of experience.
Yeah, we look at the Indian team, Deepika Kumari, who has always been a standout for them.
Yeah, starting with her marquee event of winning the Youth World Championship in the cadet category. Deepika Kumari started out arguably as one of the archers from India with tremendous talent, but then kind of went into a dark spot.
And we are getting ready to get underway here. It looks like they've got the targets pinned up.
Yep.
We're getting some new paperwork here, some new information.
So besides Deepika Kumari, the Indian team has Ramil Biruli, who is an experienced shooter, has been around for a while.
So something to note here, we're getting some information about the shoot-off between China and
Italy, right?
Italy. So it looks like we mentioned that they had measured the target 3 times. Now, The information we're getting is telling us that it was because...
Oh, they're measuring all the arrows.
Yes.
Oh, that's why. Thank you for that information for our Secretary General, Mr. Tom Dielan. Here is the reason why there were 3 measurements made. The first arrow was, as I called it, I'm patting myself on the back so hard I'm hurting my shoulder, so close to the 10 ring that it was tied.
Yeah, so as we mentioned, in a team shoot-off, when the score is tied, you go to each team's arrow that is closest to center and take a measurement. Now, those arrows were tied, so they moved on to the second arrow.
And the second arrow was tied. The second arrow was tied.
That's about as rare as it gets.
I've never heard of that before, ever.
I've never seen the second arrow tie. So they moved on to the third arrow.
And guess what?
Italy was a ½ millimeter closer.
Half a millimeter.
Half a millimeter determines your opportunity at a world championship or going home early.
Okay. Here we go. We're shooting. Yeah, you'd think they'd shoot it again. Juan Carlos is sitting here behind us going, ½ millimeter. They should shoot it again. Well, who can blame you? All right, hey, this is going to be great. Let's watch this match. We've got, there's Yuki for Japan, and we've got a 10 to open the match for India, an 8 to open the match for Japan. And Japan is motivated. They really want this. Let's see what happens here. Ooh, not so hot.
Of high arrows.
Not a great start for Japan. Pair of 8s, whereas India's got a 10. Actually, it's an X and an 8, so it's a 2-point lead for India.
Yeah, Japan may need to make an adjustment with no more rain coming down. The sun's actually come out, and it's starting to get uncomfortably warm over here.
Ooh, another 8, and it's high. They are. You just called it exactly right. India just took the first set. You called it exactly right, Steve. Here's what's happened. Japan was sighted in and shooting their last match in flat light and rain.
Because they worked through their match quickly.
But
as
India,
the lighting conditions and the rain changes, your point of impact does.
Yeah. And with a recurve, we don't have a peep sight. We don't have a rear sight. So when the sun comes out, that string gets bigger, right? It doesn't actually get bigger. It just looks bigger. So it makes you shoot to one side or the other depending on your handedness. All right, so Japan right now is not making its adjustments fast enough, and they've got 4 8s right now and a 9. India's killing them.
Yeah, and if this was a raw score event, this match would be
done.
over.
This would be done. This is a 6-point difference right now.
Spectators would be turning around and going home.
Yeah, this is why the set system is so good for this kind of thing, because right now this would be done.
Yep. So we're going to get a chance to see Japan, if they can make the necessary adjustments, come back.
Japan, boy, I'll tell you what, they got a good group up there, but it's in the freaking 8 ring and 7 ring, and that's not good enough against India. They're going to get killed if they don't pull it together quickly.
And India's got a pretty solid group right in the middle of the gold, so they shouldn't have to do too much except more of the same.
They have just got to figure this one out quick, and they're usually better than this. This is surprising.
Yeah, this is uncharacteristic, but good teams make the adjustments and can make a comeback.
Absolutely. So here we go. We'll get the official score is 2-0 in favor of India. So it'll be Japan shooting first when we resume after official scoring. We've got a fresh target face up there, by the way. Juan Carlos was saying ½ millimeter difference. Here's the problem. You know what the tolerance is on a 122 centimeter target face printed on paper?
1 millimeter, I believe.
It's actually something on the order of 3.
And
the other thing is,
rain.
Yeah, it's been rained on. And it's dried out some. So you know what it does? It shrinks.
Yes.
At the Atlanta Olympic Games, way back, I think you were probably in diapers in
I was
1996.
working my way through 3rd grade.
Okay, well then, no, just kidding. Totally kidding. All right. But you were probably still taking an afternoon nap.
Most likely, yeah.
96 Olympics. We had paper target faces up there. And it was a lot like this, except about 25 degrees warmer. In other words, lots of rain.
Extremely humid.
Yeah. So it would rain, and then the sun would come out. And it would be on the order of 38 to 40 degrees centigrade. We measured physically a 5-centimeter shrinkage in the horizontal plane and a 3-centimeter shrinkage in the vertical plane. The target went pear-shaped.
So important to keep a fresh face up, not just for scoring ring purposes, but for dimensions.
So the question is to why the judge didn't ask for a reshoot with a ½ millimeter difference will be left to historians to ponder.
I suppose that's all we can do is ponder.
Okay. So we've got Japan and India on our marquee match. We've got India with a 2-set point advantage. Japan, let's see, looking at body language, yeah, they look pretty normal.
Yeah, being down in the set system isn't anything to panic about.
They're a tiny bit subdued, to be brutally honest.
Yeah, if it's 2-0, you're 1 in away from starting over at 0.
Yeah, there's usually a little more, how shall I put it, celebration going on there, and we're not seeing it right now. Not much to celebrate with that first end, but hopefully they'll come back for this second end.
And it looks like over on the other side we have Russia with a 2-0 lead over Korea on the women's team.
Excellent. Well, that should be very interesting. We're back on right now, and it is Kaori Kawanaka getting ready to shoot for Japan on target number 1. And, another 8 for Japan, a 9 for India. Kaori is shooting her shots exactly where she was in the last end.
I don't know if she made adjustments or not.
Well, you know, there's real adjustments and then there's psycho adjustments. Psycho adjustments are click, click, and it doesn't really move the arrow. Real adjustments move the arrow, and that's another 8 for Japan and a 9 for India, 2-point lead for India. 10. So Japan using their long-time technique that starts mostly in high school, where they talk each other through the shot. It's really interesting to watch a team match in a Universiade event in Japan, because they're all talking at the same time, and it's sort of it's just incredible to listen to.
Yeah, they shouldn't be mistaken for unsportsmanlike banter in the background.
No, none of that's going
on. It's simply part of their strategy.
Yeah.
For their team.
Yeah, and I can tell you for sure that's not the case for this team.
And India with an 8 right there. So
yeah, they've got 3 9s and an 8. There's a 10-10-10 for Japan with a pair of 8s.
So even if India shoots a 10 here, Japan is going to hold a 1-point lead.
India with a 9 on that one. So Japan with an opportunity here. They need a 10. And that's a 9. That might be good enough.
That should close the set unless there's any close calls on the target face, which I do not see.
They're 5 down. Yes, they are in it by 1 minimum. So Japan has tied India 2-2. All right, so we are showing unofficially on the board 55 points for Japan, 54 points for India. Solid shooting for both teams, but Japan responding well, you know.
Yeah, to start with 2 8s can rattle you a little bit, but with their third shooter shooting a solid 10, the other two were able to find 10 or close to it and take the set points.
Our next match is going to be the United States of America versus Korea after this match between Japan and India. I'm George Tekmitchup here on Archery TV with Steve, the big cat, the Okineko, the grande. How do you say cat in Spanish there, Steve? Gato, right? Grande gato. Gato grande.
Yes, Gato Grande. Yeah. Sorry, I am back.
Remind me to push that button right there next time you take your headphones off.
Okay.
All right, thanks. Thanks for the water, by the way.
You're welcome. Just how you like it, no lemon.
This portion of the match brought to you by the Danish water bottle.
Excellent water in the hotel rooms here.
I noticed that.
Yes.
No surprise. All teams shooting front
saving all kinds of money on the minibar by being able to drink the water out of the faucet.
Yeah, I know Evian France is highly regarded, but darn, I could come here with a couple of milk jugs and go home happy.
Water. I might make a snide comment about how water is about all you can afford to drink in Scandinavia, but I won't do that. It is an expensive place by American standards, anyway.
Yeah, very expensive. The exchange rate about 6.8 to the dollar. So do your math and be smart with your purchases, I guess.
Or minimize them. Okay, we've got a 2-2 draw.
Yeah, for both the Japan and India match, as well as the Korea and Russia match that is taking place on the target further down the field.
So here's who's coming up next for the recurve men.
USA versus Korea should be a really interesting match.
Yes, indeed. It's sort of a grudge match from the London 2012 games. You might look at it that way anyway.
Yeah, and the head-to-head matches between Brady Ellison and Oh Jin-hyuk have been pretty stellar the last few years as well.
Yep. And I'm not quite sure who's ahead on that one. I haven't been keeping track too closely. But I can tell you that they're not enemies. They are definitely not enemies. They're just rivals.
Yep.
Okay, Japan with another 8. That's Kaori there. Oh boy, that's in the black there for India. That's a 4.
Oh,
not what they wanted.
India with a really they're giving them a 5 on the board here, so really tough to come back from that.
Nah, that's not going to be a 5. 10. Nah, X ring. X ring for Japan.
India 9.
Yeah, I don't think India's actually going to get a 5 out of that first arrow. I really don't.
Not sure it's going to matter, but we
yeah,
still have arrows to shoot.
I know.
And a
there's a 9.
Here.
9 points for India. Japan, with a 6.
Yeah, and she actually let that arrow down before she shot it. She came off the shot, drew her bow again, and shot a 6.
I think they're feeling the pressure, both teams. India with a 9. Japan with a 9. So Japan is 7 down. And India is 8 down if we are generous and give them that 5. Could be as much as 9 down there. And Japan with a 10. Call that a 9, rather.
Yeah, it's a critical arrow. The archer who had shot the 6 is now up on the line, and to have a 10 in front of her probably helps calm her nerves and calm her down.
That's Saori Nagamine. She's the newcomer to the team. And she is coming through in the clutch. That's an X.
Yep.
And there's an 8 for India. So Japan now leading 4-2, Steve, in spite of a slow start. By the way, Kaori Nagamine uses ACE rods, which I'll leave to the listener to figure out the irony, because Steve had a comment about that yesterday.
You know, ACE rods, I think, were around when I was in diapers.
Yes, exactly. I think your comment was, anybody out here at the World Championships using ACE rods, they ought to at least get an upgrade to an AC Pro. I heard you say that.
Yeah. I could probably make that happen.
You know, we started out in the broadcast. What do you call this when you're on YouTube? The tubecast? Webcast. Thank you. That's the word. See, that's why I work with a younger person.
And I didn't invent it just now either.
Well, no, Al Gore invented that, didn't he?
Could be.
It's 70 meters to the target. It takes about 1.7 seconds for that arrow to hit the target. And when the wind is blowing, Steve, that is a long time.
Yeah, and it takes something like 1/10 of a degree of change in elevation of the archer's aim to move them out of the 10 ring. So it's a pretty small margin of error. So Korea takes a 4-2 advantage on the target next to us after starting off with an 0-2 deficit.
I just saw Steve take a selfie, and you know how most people need a selfie stick? Steve is 6
by their standards.
And now you shoot a compound and a release. How did you go down that path?
Good question. Good question. It's a long story I probably shouldn't dive into here, but it seems to be that it was meant to be.
All right. Well, I'd say the energy level's back up. I see that Kaori is her usual smiling self, so is Yuki. Saori is always a little more restrained, I think, I'd put it. But they're always smiling. It's kind of cool.
Smiling, giggling. After that last 10, you heard a squeal of outburst from them. So, yeah, they seem to be back in their groove.
And they get along well. You know, that's what's really nice. They get along really well, and they support each other as a team. So
yeah, very important for a women's team.
Tremendous.
Or men's, obviously.
Big advantage.
Yeah. I've personally been a part of teams that had women's teams that were not so in tune with one another and did not compete as well in the team rounds because of it.
Yeah, you know, sort of self-defeating to have an attitude like that.
Yeah. I saw Deepika Kumari. She must have had a broken knock. She pulled an arrow, went to load it, and then threw it back behind the line. So
there you go. She obviously, well, thank goodness she picked it up as a problem before she tried to shoot it. That's 10-9 liner for Japan, probably a 10, and India responds with a very similar shot, 10-9 liner. And Spotter says it's a 9 for India.
Yeah, I'm seeing 9 on the screen.
Yeah, but I'm seeing that Japanese arrow could also be potentially called a 9. Now there's a 9 for Japan. There's a 9 for India, so unofficially it's a 1-point lead for the team of Japan potentially here. Here comes Japan, another 9. India with a 10. So now we've got ourselves an unofficial tie. India has got to win this set outright or they will lose. First team to reach 5 set points is the winner. And Japan is working to try to do just that. They've got another 9. India with a 10, though. So India, again, India has got to win this set. All Japan has to do is cruise to a tie. And that's an 8 for Japan, giving them 45 points and a 3-point cushion right now for the team of India. And India,
they are
with a 9, they're in a good spot right here. Here comes Japan.
And if you notice, George, there's not an arrow.
India with
on
another
the right
8.
side of the X. All arrows are to the left side of the X ring.
This is going to come down to a shoot-off if India keeps it in the gold. And there it is. We're going to have ourselves a shoot-off.
And if I'm one of these teams, you look at the target right now, you need to favor the right side of the 10 ring.
We've got a shoot-off right now, and it's going to be Japan versus India. Each team member will shoot 1 arrow. And as soon as the scores are ratified and the field is cleared, we will proceed with a shoot-off, each team member with a single arrow. Cool stuff, but not necessarily where you want to be if you're Japan right now, because they haven't started out that strong.
No,
and a shoot-off arrow is just like you're starting out.
Yeah, you need great arrows, and you get 1 chance at it. So Japan with a slow start in the first set, and picked it up there for the second and third, but let India back in. You open the door, and they stepped right through it, and now we're in a shoot-off situation.
Gentlemen, the women of Korea and Russia are all square.
So we're looking at Japan versus India, but don't forget that we've had another match going on right now, which is the match between Russian Federation and Korea, and they also have a shoot-off, Steve.
Some drama here to decide who will be in the gold medal final.
Japan and India. Into a shoot-off we go. Not surprising that these two teams are so evenly matched. They qualified both those teams together. Japan in 6th, India in 10th.
Be the USA versus Korea for the next semifinal that we're going to feature here. It'll be the men's semifinal match between the United States and Korea, as Japan and India get ready for their tiebreaker.
On Sunday morning.
Japan is in smile mode. I don't know what else to call it. But when they're shooting well and when they're feeling confident, they have that look that you see right now as they walk past our position. India's a little more restrained, shall we say.
Yeah, and they tend to, I've never seen their Recurve women's team take a real energetic approach. They tend to kind of approach the line.
Yeah, it's workmanlike, right?
Yeah, it's right. You can see Deepika taking a deep breath there.
Yeah.
They try to keep everything more subdued.
Yeah, quite different personality-wise. As we get back underway, it's going to be Kaori Kawanaka headed to the line for Japan, the Olympic bronze medal holder, with the team bronze medal from the efforts of herself, as well as her teammates from the London Games. Here is the first shot of this shoot-off. 10 points for Japan, 10 points for India, and boy, I'll tell you what, that's going to be hard to beat, that shot from India.
Yeah, that's
it's a solid X.
Right there.
So if the scores are tied, it'll be tough for Japan. Let's see what happens in the next two shots. That's a 9 for Japan and another 10 for India. Final arrows. Saori was shooting. This is the same shooting order that they used when they beat Korea in Turkey. And Saori just shot an 8.
8 up the top.
Here comes Turkey. Or excuse me, here comes India. And 10-10-10. Is there anything else to say? That is it.
And there's the energy. Yeah,
now they're showing it. Now they're happy.
And what do we have over on the Korea and Russia?
Here we go over to Korea and Russia with the scope. And, oh my, 10-10, 8-9, 8-7 liner, 9-9-9. I hate to say it, but I think we could be looking at Russia. Is it Russia?
Yeah,
Steve, I'm thinking Russia took this thing from Korea. I'm thinking Russia took this thing from Korea. And that means Korea versus Japan for the bronze. And it could mean India versus Russia. And it is official. It's India headed to the gold medal. And it's Russia. It's India and Russia shooting for the gold. A shocker. A shocker, Steve. This is the second big event in a row where Korea is going to be denied gold.
And that's rare. It's very rare to see them out of the gold medal match. You see their men looking on, and their men are getting ready to shoot against the U.S., and the coaches are all kind of stunned, and we'll see how the men respond. I don't expect them to be.
Look at the Korean men. Look how they're reacting.
Yeah, they're just very
subdued.
Surprised. Yeah.
Subdued. Oh boy, this is. We talked earlier about potential for cracks in the foundation of the Korean women's program, but it's kind of like a company like Apple. When a company like Apple, the most wealthy and successful company in the world, has a little drop in its stock, everybody goes, "Oh, look what's happening to Apple." It's like that. Korea's like Apple, right?
Right.
They don't have a couple of wins right now, and everybody's going, "What's up with Korea?" Well, they're not broken.
Yeah, everybody's surprised because they're only in the bronze medal.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's an awful lot of teams that are great teams that are not in any kind of medal match here.
You get hot for 4 ends, and that's all it takes to win a match against anybody.
So it's going to be Korea and Japan shooting for the bronze, which is actually arguably going to be a very entertaining match, considering that those two teams came up against each other in the World Cup final, in the last World Cup that took place in beautiful Antalya, Turkey. And we are going to be seeing that potential for a rematch. I think that Japan is going to be very well motivated to keep Korea on their heels. And Korea is going to be equally motivated, if not far more motivated, to try to seize the initiative and come back.
Yeah, sometimes in sport like this, you see a team in the bronze medal match, and they'll get to a point where they just don't care. It's gold or nothing, and they're in the bronze, and they might lose motivation. And then a team like Korea is always going to get the best effort from the team they're competing against.
Yeah, they're too professional to have that attitude of, well, I don't care, it's just bronze. They don't nothing. They will not give any quarter because they're professional.
Right, they are, and I think they understand that no matter who they're shooting against, they're going to get the other team's best effort. They have to give a great effort themselves if they want to be competitive. And even though they're so used to being in gold medal finals, I got to think it still means something to them to take home a World Championship bronze medal.
Almost certainly. All right, well, coming up next, we've got Korea versus the United States of America. We talked earlier a little bit about Korea. Let's talk about the USA. Boy, we've got some talent there.
Yeah. Brady Ellison, obviously a proven talent, 3-time World Cup Finals champion. Two of the guys you don't hear a lot about, Colin Klimacek, who is, I believe, around 19 or 20 years old, and Zach Garrett, the same age. And those two have had some absolutely ripping scores this year. Obviously, they were able to make the team for this. They all qualified really well at Pan Am Games. Zach made it to the bronze medal final there, ultimately losing to Jay Lyon in that bronze medal final, but garnered some finals experience. These guys were in the team final, the team bronze medal match in Antalya, and Colin and Brady faced off in the individual bronze medal match there, and Colin actually beat him.
Yeah, and you know what? They're really nice guys.
All of them good guys. Zach's a big-time archery junkie, just totally, and I say this in a good way, he's a geek about it.
Well, he makes his own stabilizers.
Yeah, he makes a lot of his own stuff.
He invented a little variation on the Classic Koi Super Rest. Basically got 2 arms on it.
And he had to get it cleared by World Archery. So,
yeah. So he wants to be an innovator in the sport.
I suppose. And then Colin has come on really strong the last couple of years. We saw him win a USA qualifier at the age of 16, I believe. And from there, it's been a steady climb. And this year, he's really kind of come into his own. So he
strikes me as a very serious-minded guy.
Yeah, he could be the toughest competitor mentally for them. And that's saying a lot.
I agree with you. I also think that the future may very well ride on Colin's shoulders and also Zach's, as well as Brady, if he can deign to stay with us through the travails of the...
Brady has made mention of his desires to shoot raw score matches and maybe move over to the compound side, where undoubtedly he'd have great success.
I guarantee you that if that does happen, he will find some measure of success, but the reality is that the rest of the compound world is going to be right on him.
Yeah, the USA men's compound team is a tough one to make.
Well, you are the alternate for this very event.
I am the alternate, and when you're the alternate at the World Championships, you end up in the booth talking about archery.
You make that sound like a bad thing.
I'm enjoying myself.
You'll be headed to Poland next, right, Steve?
Yeah,
opening arrow from the USA is at 10.
They're actually
from Korea.
They're taking a practice.
This is obviously practice. So while the Koreans are practicing there, this is a little opportunity, isn't it, to kind of, how do you put this, scratch the ground and snort.
Yeah, for these guys, they've been sitting for 30 minutes or so, and like we mentioned, the weather has changed. Not seeing any arrows really high out the top.
Korea's solid, man. Yeah, 3 10s and a 9 so far.
The U.S. shooters have a couple low arrows. So.
Yeah, well, it's practice, like you said.
Yeah.
Tell us about Poland. You've got the next World Cup stage. You're shooting for the United States.
Yeah, World Cup Stage 3 in Wrocław, Poland, coming up in about 2 weeks' time after this. And that was my first World Cup, actually. I went to that in the 2014 edition.
And it changed your life?
I suppose, yeah. So I was actually, I believe I finished 6th or 7th there last year. Was put out by Martin Damsbo in the quarterfinals.
Okay, but isn't that the tournament where you got serious about your wife, or not?
No, I was long before that.
Oh, okay,
we were
all right,
already engaged.
All right,
so
just checking.
I'd already, busted the move, as they say.
I see.
In the biz.
Steve is married to the top shooter from Mexico, Linda Ochoa Anderson now.
Yes. And
so it's an archery family now,
No family thus far.
Well, you know what I mean by that. It's
an
archery couple.
Yes, we are. And her family has been heavily involved in archery for
she's certainly from an archery
years.
dynasty.
Yeah.
Ruben, her uncle, right?
Yeah, her uncle is a distributor there in Mexico.
But also a top shooter.
Yeah. Her sister was a top shooter for a while, and her brother-in-law was actually an Olympian at the 2004 Athens Games, Jorge Chapoy.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a regular archery dynasty right there.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, it's a family sport that we have here. You go back to families, the Wild family, right? Dad, Dee, and sons, Logan and Rio, and what they've achieved. You see other families that have done tremendous things in our sport over time. I mentioned my friend Jorn Bjerndal. His daughter Christine is shooting here.
Yeah, it tends to be something that parents can do with their kids, as opposed to a lot of other events, or a lot of parents get into a sport where their kids do it, so they drive them to it, but they don't necessarily get to participate. But yeah, this is one where family can do it all together, and kids could come up in the sport.
Something we've seen, of course, is a big surge in the number of people who are getting involved in our sport and who are trying to get into it as a hobby or as a pastime or even as a career. What do you think would be a good path for somebody trying to do that? Well, how would you want to start them out?
Oh, well, if I was breaking into the archery scene, for me, I got into it because I needed something competitive to do following my days in college basketball. I had shot archery when I was around 13 or 14. My uncles got me into it. I came back to it, as I said, in my college days. I was finished with college basketball. I needed something to do. I was still competitive. I, couldn't beat enough people in chess or checkers. So got into archery, and one thing led to another. I started competing, and here I am now. So if I was looking to get into the sport today, there's a lot of avenues to do it, some good, some bad. But honestly, I think the best thing you can do is find a reputable coach who either did it themselves or has proven that they can coach those who have competed at a high level themselves. There's for as many good coaches as there are, there's probably double the bad coaches. I hate to say it, but with the wrong advice, you'll go nowhere fast. Proper bow fitting is key. Get the right equipment. A lot of people, you start with a budget in mind, and from there, undoubtedly, if you remain in the sport, you're going to go into the high-end stuff and work your way into that. So
the first thing to do, though, is not to go out and buy a bunch of equipment.
No, the equipment isn't going to make you a good shooter.
No more than owning a guitar makes you a musician.
Exactly. So find a good instructor, someone who can get you started with technique and then help guide you into the proper equipment.
By the way, while we've been chattering away here, the weather, what happened?
Unbelievably
we just
sunny.
moved somewhere else, 500 miles south, I think.
Unbelievably sunny. The wind is still, probably around a constant 2 to 4 meters per second. Not too bad. These archers are professionals. They've all done this before. It's probably what they would consider a calm wind.
Yeah, but without a doubt, it's a huge improvement from about an hour ago?
Yeah, we were getting poured on.
As we're headed down to the last ends of practice here for the United States team, I would like to welcome a special guest on our webcast. And he is one of my oldest and dearest friends in the sport of archery, and his name is known to many of you. It is Don Rabska. Dr. Don, thank you for joining us here this afternoon.
My pleasure, George. Good to see you.
Don has worked for the Easton Companies and Easton Foundation for more than 30 years, has been a close personal friend of our World Archery President, Jim Easton, and has helped with many of the innovations in our sport today, including his current role as head of the technical committee of World Archery, which is responsible for many things. Give us an idea of what the technical committee does, Don.
Well, the technical committee is any time that archery equipment comes in that needs to be determined if it's legal or not legal. That's basically what we do. We determine if its legality and how it can be utilized in the sport, or if it can.
A few minutes ago, Steve and I were talking about Zach Garrett, the American archer. And Zach is, as you know, he's kind of like we used to be. You know, he's a young guy who's really interested in figuring out how to make things a little bit better, get a few more points out of his equipment. And one of the interesting things that he did was he came up with a sort of double arrow rest, right? Took an old Hoyt Super rest and cut another one and made two arms to hold the arrow up. That's the kind of thing you've got to look at sometimes to determine legality, right?
Right, and you look at history too. What else has been used in the past, and how many contact points. So, fortunately, I have a little bit of history in the sport, and so I was able to pull up a bear rest, the old brush rest, which had 7 little brushes.
Like a toothbrush almost, right?
Basically a toothbrush, but it had 7 different sets of bristles coming out. So it was a multi-contact point, and therefore I felt that rest was legal. And if it was made out of one piece with 2 arms, then it was definitely one rest.
So as head of the committee, you make a recommendation, I guess, to the rest of the committee, and then they decide that you discuss things over coffee or whatever.
I try to give it just kind of a blind situation. And I let them all give me their opinion.
If it were this, what would you do?
Exactly right. Yeah.
I see.
Rather than trying to force my opinion on them.
So it's a guidance and leadership role, but not one that you ever would say, I want it this way. This is just a role where they sort of role play in a way. They sort of look at what could be happening and decide if this were happening, what would the legality be?
They give me their opinion based on their experience, and then I compile those, and if there's any disputes and so forth, then I kind of bring in my own opinion as far as what I know from history, and look at my own technical knowledge as far as the equipment goes, and go from there.
Well, that's really
try to help them along.
That sounds like a lot of fun, really.
It is fun. Yeah, I enjoy it. Been doing it a long time.
Well, speaking of fun, we're about to have some, because we're looking at 2 great teams that are about to duke it out to decide which ones are going to go on to the gold medal final.
Pretty exciting. Both great teams, great bunch of archers out there, well known and very, very, very talented.
Let's talk a little bit about the U.S. program, and the kids that are coming out of that program comprise the entirety of who we see for the United States on the field right now.
Exactly. That's all resident athletes out of there, out of Coach Lee's program. He's doing a fantastic job. And
you had an integral role in creating the basis for that program, even the technique that's taught. Tell us a little bit about how long it's taken to get here. We're pushing something on the order of 10 years now.
Yeah, well, actually, I've been working on it for about 20 years back when I was a board member of USA Archery. I felt that it was important because I saw the rest of the world kind of passing us by, and we used to dominate, and then that kind of went away.
Yeah, and just by used to dominate, some folks who are watching this for the first, or listening in and watching, don't really understand or know some of the history of what the United States has accomplished in this sport. We had the first Olympic champion in the modern games, 1972, John Williams.
John Williams, that's right. And he set 2 world records during the Olympic Games.
Then we had
Doreen Wilbur also won the gold medal, so America took both the gold medals at that time.
Exactly. America dominated archery all the way up until 1992, in fact, except for when, of course, we didn't participate
in 1980.
In 1980.
Correct. Yeah,
and a good friend of yours won the gold medal there, Tommy Poikalainen of Finland.
Yes.
Tommy used to go to your house every year to train because you live in Los Angeles and the weather is much better than it is in Finland in April.
Yeah, kind of, yeah. Just a little bit.
So you've had
also have a lot more light.
You've had an integral role in some of that American success. I mean, your friends such as Rick McKinney and Darrell Pace dominated the sport in the 1980s.
Correct. 70s and 80s.
Darrell in the 70s and Rick more so in the 80s.
Well,
And
Rick was world champion in 1977.
yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. And, you know, it was World Championships, Olympic medals. The only person to take 2 Olympic gold individual medals, Darrell Pace.
Correct.
In 1976 and in 1984 again.
And he wasn't able to shoot 1980.
And arguably, and we can never know, but he arguably certainly had a shot. He'd certainly be on your top list of people
Yes, he would.
for the 1980 medal, which was won by Tommy Poikolainen in a pouring rain.
Yeah, miserable weather.
Really bad weather. And then 88, Jay Bars.
Correct.
With the new round at that time, the Grand FIDE round, which was sort of kind of like a head-to-head round, but not.
It's a FIDE sprint.
Yes.
so to speak.
And then you had another important role, and that was helping to create, along with Jim Easton and along with a vice president of NBC Sports, the format that we currently use today, head-to-head archery.
Yeah, I really give all that credit to Jim Easton.
Yeah, me too.
He was the brains behind that whole thing.
But I know you were also there. But
yeah, I was. Yeah, I was alive and well.
You were breathing.
But
No,
that was.
But
that
it was Jim's
Jim.
idea,
Yeah.
you know. And Jim, and we could go on for hours about what Jim's done for our sport.
He's an amazing man.
But that's one thing that we really need to consider is that we wouldn't be in the Olympic Games today without that change.
That's absolutely 100% right.
So in 1991, you created an opportunity to test Jim's concept of the head-to-head match by putting on a match in Long Beach, California.
Mm-hmm.
You put together a video at that time, and you
Correct.
sold it to the IOC. Basically,
right.
IOC went, yeah, we like that. Let's try it.
Head-to-head, sudden death has made it exciting.
Yeah, and then in '92 in Barcelona at the Olympic Games, that was the first opportunity that there
Correct.
was to have that match, and boy, did it turn out all right.
In fact, Jim Easton had invited Juan Antonio Samaranch,
The head of
to
the IOC.
the games, the head of the IOC at that time, and the team round was already out of the Olympics at that time, and it was back in.
Because of the success of that round.
Exactly right.
Here comes the opening arrows for the match between the United States and Korea just shot an X. The USA with a 10, tied score right now. And there's another X for Korea. United States with a 9, Korea with a 1-point lead, Don.
Both teams shooting well.
You know, if you want to beat Korea in the old method, when it was straight scoring, there's another, that's a 9 just out for Korea. You had to rack something up on the board ahead of them quickly and keep the pressure up. That was the only way.
On, absolutely.
And even then, it was hard. You know. But now with the set system, these guys are really tough.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, USA with with a 10 and 2 9s. Korea, solid shooting. We're looking at 3 10s and a 10-9 liner. USA with a 9 on that one. Korea with another 10. My goodness. Can you can see the monitor.
Impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah, the center's all filled up.
Yep. Just a wad of arrows. USA is not going to be able to take this set unless there's a big issue from Korea. There it is, done. That could be a 60. It's very possible. You see the asterisk is illuminated on the scoreboard.
Looks like a 59, but I can't tell.
Yeah, I think it's a 59.
Yeah.
But boy, they've got the asterisk lit, so there's the possibility it's touching. If it is, that's 60 points. What are you going to do with that? Really, seriously.
It's hard to beat a 60.
Not
very difficult.
flying body tackle doesn't even do it.
No.
You know.
It's not a good idea to block arrows either.
So 92 Barcelona Olympic Games.
Mm-hmm.
The venue liked it so much that there were complaints from the tennis venue half a mile down the road.
Yeah, from the noise, you mean?
From the noise from the spectators.
Exactly.
The Dutch showed up with a brass instrument band and drums.
Yes.
And were just
Correct.
rocking at the top of the
Yes, they were.
stands.
Yeah.
So an unequivocal success.
Completely. Going back to what Samaran said, because he'd already had the team round on the chopping block and it was already out as of 9. But fortunately, you know, that he loved the team round, Samaran, and he told Jim before they left that day, his team round's back in, it's staying.
Nice.
Yeah.
So that's why we have this round that we are shooting right now.
Exactly.
Because partly our buddy Juan Carlos Holgado, along with his teammates Antonio Vasquez and his other teammate, they were able to win that gold medal in front of the King of Spain
and
in front of
Samaranch.
the real patriarch of the modern Olympic movement, Juan Antonio Samaranch. You know, he's the man who shaped what the games are today to a large extent. And our sport is what it is because Jim Easton had a vision of making it cooler to watch, more interesting.
Spectator, lots of spectator appeal.
And the bonus is it's not just spectators that like it, it's archers too. I think we have more shooters in the sport longer because it's enjoyable.
I agree.
So that went on to the next Olympics up until the London Games, and there's been one change in the format since that time, major change, because we went from 18 arrows to 12 arrows in the head-to-head matches. The set system is the big change, per se. Now, Jim had thought about a set system. You know, this was something that you and he had discussed. I know I discussed it with him back in the 90s, and the idea was, yeah, someday maybe, but the sport's not ready for it because it adds more complication. And the idea was to make the sport very transparent to people who weren't necessarily involved in the sport, in particular the media.
Correct.
But now we've gotten to a point where it looks like it's working pretty well, I think, having the set system. How do you really feel about it personally?
I think it still works well. Either format works really well. It's that head-to-head match. I think that really pushed us to the top and moved us up in the Olympic movement. In fact, we've moved up a category since then, and archery has become even a stronger sport in the Olympic movement.
Yeah. Now, you know, in the past I've done venue announcing for World Archery for these types of events, like at the Olympics, 6 Olympic Games, and I always had a sense that the crowd loved it no matter what the format was. You know, because they're at the Olympics and they're watching the athletes, etc. But it is a little easier to sense that the crowd is excited over the set system because of the fact of the comeback factor.
Correct.
You know, the comeback factor, it helps make for a better story in some ways. And some shooters feel differently about that than others. But in general, I think it works pretty well.
Yeah, from the spectator appeal side, I agree with you.
Back in action here. Targets 1 and 2. USA's got themselves a pair of 9s, and looks like Korea's got a pair of 9s. You know, USA has got one arrow that could be touching the 10 ring. That's not showing up on the board that way, but it's pretty close. I would say that if it's out by half a millimeter. USA with, we'll call it 3 9s for now. Korea with a 10 and 2 9s. USA is getting ready to shoot. Korea has delivered another 10. It's a 10 for USA. Korea is shooting at a little higher pace, a little faster pace than the United States. USA is going to need that questionable arrow now if they're going to hold off Korea. Because Korea just shot a 10, and there's a 10 from the U.S. now. That becomes critical, Don, because now it's 48 to 47 on the board. 46 is what it's showing right now. I don't know quite why. Hang on a second while I double check this. I see what should be, here we go. Yep, that's a 10 from the United States. So here comes Korea, and we have a 1-point difference in favor of Korea, with one questionable arrow on the scoreboard of the USA. Now, if that arrow is touching, we're looking at the potential for a tie here. Otherwise, Korea just took this.
7 points for Korea, but the USA team have a 9 that may be upgraded to a 10, which would tie the set and give them a set point. So we're going to see what the judges' final decision is on the second arrow for the team from the
As a World Archery insider, do you anticipate that there's more room for adjustment, or do you think we're in a period of time now when we've got the matches, the method for the matches more or less settled? What's your opinion personally?
I don't see any major changes whatsoever coming in the near future anyway. It seems to be working, and I think it's important to have some continuity and consistency in the format that we have. It's easier for spectators to understand and get them trained, and then we don't want to change it on them.
Yeah, and give them a good show as they seem to enjoy. Like I said, they enjoy it no matter what the format is, but they enjoy it just a little more when there's a chance for somebody to come back from shooting, say, a 6 or something, because that just kind of sucks the air right out of the room.
Right, sure does.
This is exactly the kind of thing you want to see right now, where you've got, if it were raw score, Korea would have walked away with this thing, honestly, right?
Yes, correct.
At this point. And they still may, but, you're looking at a situation where USA still's got a chance. People are going to watch right now, and they're watching to see what the judge has to say, and the judge had a close look at that, and so the question now...
Now we're waiting to see if it's going to be 9 or 10.
And the judge is going to make that indication.
Let's look at the field, and the Chinese Taipei team are back into it. It's all square, 2-2. And in our featured match, it's Korea now, who lead the USA 3-1.
We have a 3-1 situation right now. If Korea had won that set, be done. We've got ourselves a 3-1 match. Now the USA has a chance. So USA did catch the line on that arrow.
They sure did. It's an exciting match. With some amazing shooting.
Have you been watching Oh Jin Hyuk shooting at all?
Yes, I have.
He had a brilliant start today. He had a rough start yesterday. What's going on with him from your professional point of view as a coach?
I just think that the weather was a little tougher than most people thought it was. If you saw the wind flags, they're blowing pretty good, and there was good gusts. But the main thing I watched was arrow flight. When that arrow got about down halfway, it just started swirling like it was amazing.
Because the wind is doing stuff that you can't detect.
It was just going through a complete jitter.
Like there's a stream of air going across the field.
There's like a layer in there that was just really moving the arrows along.
And that can sap your confidence very quickly if you don't understand what's going on.
Especially when you saw the scores weren't so high yesterday.
Yeah, no, they weren't. And, the conditions, they were tough. People felt beat up by the weather. Korea with a solid X, and the USA just as solid of an X. If that were shoot-off arrow, it would be too close to call. It really would. Korea with another 10. Oh, ouch. 8 points for the United States. Zach Garrett getting ready to shoot for the United States. Meanwhile, Korea with treble 10. USA with a 10. Nice shot.
Nice shot, Zach.
Yeah, but they're down by 2, and they're halfway through this set. The first team to reach 5 set points will win. So if Korea wins this set, that's it. Done.
So 9, they could come back with a 10.
Yes, they can. There they did.
There it is.
Yeah. This is a 1-point match right now, or in this particular set. Let's see what happens. Korea with a 10. Ouch. And that's the end of the story.
Yep.
Well, it was a valiant effort by the United States, but the Korean juggernaut is, boy, I'll tell you, unless something serious happens right now. That's all she wrote. That is the end for the United States. Korea with 59 of a possible 60. And how can you argue with that? That is it. Done.
55, yes.
Dominant. And the United States not shooting badly. I mean,
not at all, but 59 is hard to pick up points on.
Can't afford 8s against Korea when they're on.
Yeah, absolutely not.
Big field and not too many wind tag type indicators out here that are reliable. We've got the wind flags that were pretty wet earlier. We got the wind socks, which I don't know, but between you and me, Don, the wind socks as a shooter have never done that much for me. I mean, I've never felt like I could really get a gauge of what the wind was doing from a wind sock.
They'd be better at a higher elevation, that's for sure. They feel out what real wind is doing. The wind that most affects the arrow.
Yeah, some of these women's bows are putting arrows up to 22 feet and at the top of the arc, and that flag's what, about 11?
If that.
Yeah. So yeah, I agree with you. I think that would be conspicuously useful.
Yeah. peak arc of the arrow is really where you want those flags.
One of the other things I noticed, I'm coaching one of the teams out here on the field, and I couldn't feel reliably what the wind was doing from one moment to the next, because what you felt at the target and what it was doing effectively, there was a disconnect, and I think it's related to what you were talking about, that sort of stream of air moving across this big field.
And you can't tell which way it's going. On one side of the field, the flags are going faster than the other, and you just can't pick it up on it, and they're shifting.
Some of us were discussing this the other day, and you'd probably remember if anybody does. Do you think this field is bigger than the one we had at Van Cortlandt Park in New York in the Bronx? I think it's actually physically a little shorter, but it's got more targets on it. At any rate, it's probably the biggest, or one of the biggest.
Torino was also quite large.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Our friend Eric Kornbeck supplied all these target butts out here from his Denage company.
Yeah, nice.
They're always a pleasure to shoot on.
They certainly are. Flat, arrows pull easy. That's a great target system.
I'm sure Eric is very proud to have this event here in his home. Well, a dominating win by the team of Korea.
They shot well. Pair of 59s and a 57.
Just remarkable. So we're going to be seeing some great matches on the last day here in Copenhagen on Sunday coming up this weekend, as it's going to be the team of Korea versus the team of Italy, because of a half millimeter difference. A half millimeter difference. Apparently, you weren't here, Steve Anderson and I were calling this one. In the shoot-off, the first arrow was shot, and it was a 10, and it was a certain distance. And the second arrow was shot, and it was a 9, and it was a certain distance. And the third arrow was shot, 9. Both teams shot identical score. So, of course, we go to closest arrow to center. Now, silly me, I thought that meant the arrow closest to center is the winner, and that if they're identical, you have another shoot-off. But apparently, I was wrong. What they did was they then measured the second arrow to see if it was closer to the center, because the first one was considered tied.
Interesting.
And so they decided the second arrow was tied. So they checked the third arrow. Now, I'm back here. I'm 100 meters away, 200 meters away, and I've got a pretty good spotting scope. And I'm going, there's no way I can tell from here what the difference is, right? So the judge has calipers. She's down there. She's looking at the thing. She's going back and forth. I've never seen that before, right? So she's going to the Italian target. She's measuring. Meanwhile, some of the Italians are pushing on her, just kind of, I've never seen a World Archery judge put up with that before. So I was thinking this has to be a Danish judge, because these folks are so nice.
Yes,
that they wouldn't say it if they were being pushed, right?
Don't lean on me.
Yeah, well, yeah, one of the Italians, a notably large one, was leaning on the judge, literally, while the judge is checking with the thing. And second arrow, she's measuring it. She goes back to the Chinese Taipei target, and then she goes back to the Italian target, and she's checking it. Long story short, half millimeter difference. And that's why Italy will be shooting for gold on Sunday. So that concludes this portion of the broadcast. I want to thank you, Don Rabska, from the World Archery Technical Committee, and from the Easton Foundation. I'm George Tekmitchov. We'll be back later this afternoon.
So the fourth and final set complete in the match between Chinese Taipei and Italy. On target 7 and 8. Chinese Taipei with a 4-2 lead. So they need only one more point to clinch the match and go into the gold and silver medal match.